You don't say no for other people. You must make other people say no to you. Hello, my name is Klara Doubell, and I am the Chief Financial Officer here at Globaltrack. I think it's good to be young in a senior position because I think you have a lot of energy, and I think you have a lot of patience and time for people because it's all new. So you're kind of always wanting to try your best. You always feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that gives you a lot of growth to be a better person. You're constantly not second guessing yourself, but I think because you don't have that confidence of your age, you want to think through what you've done and make sure that everything you're doing is good and kind of the best. So I think it makes you take a bit more time to really think things through. And I think to make sure I don't shrink, but to also still have a presence, I think what I've always tried to do is that I will make sure that I make myself known when something's really important to me. So I don't often just speak to fill the void, and I won't give a lot of unnecessary opinions. I'd rather choose what I care about, and if I care about it a lot, then I'll fight for that one thing and I'll make sure my voice is known there. But I think to then let things slip when they're not that important. Well, if I think about my life outside of Globaltrack, I think I really do try and have a balance. I love my job and I love what I do, and I do think you end up working quite a lot, even outside of the office. But I always try and have a good balance with other things in my life. So I'm very active. I gym a lot. I did a half Ironman last year. I take pottery lessons every week for about 3 hours on a Saturday, which I love because I actually made this. I'm obviously very proud of it, seeing as it's at the office. But I think that's great because there's all kind of benefit to doing different things in your life. One of the things I love about pottery is that it slows my life down. It's 3 hours of just sitting at a table, working with clay with my hands. I don't use a wheel, it's literally just my hands. It teaches you patience. It teaches you to not always be good at everything. So I think it's important to get those kind of things from different places in your life and to not just focus on work. I think it would be handing over for my first audit. It was all on me, and it was kind of me saying that I thought everything was completely correct and perfect and that I'd gone through everything. And there was no one looking over my shoulder, no one who knew more than me. And I basically was finalizing everything for a whole year and saying, that this was, and I think it was a representation of myself, because obviously as a CA, I think you feel quite stressful giving it to an auditor because you know that you don't want them to judge you or to look at something and think, why were you doing this, or this was silly. So I think that was a lot of pressure, and actually doing it and realizing that I could do it and do it at a young age, I think that it made me feel very accomplished. And I think I realized that I could do a lot of things and do a lot of hard things. I do often look back at it and think it's really weird how life happens, because you are made to make these big decisions at 18 that you don't really know what you're really doing. And I think accounting was my best subject, so I just decided to do BCom accounting. I remember stepping into UCT and someone telling me in our first year that our course was 4 years and not 3 years, and I learned it that day. So it kind of just happened, and I was very lucky. I was always just loving what I was doing. So the more I learned, I was like, okay, cool, I'm doing the CA route. It's 3 years of articles. There's exams during the articles. I think I just kind of kept having these things just being told to me. So I think it was a lot of luck that I chose a direction that I knew I was passionate about and that I knew would be good for me. To paraphrase my stepdad, he said, follow the money. So I think as a young 18-year-old, I was like, okay, I'll follow the money, I'll be a CA. So I'm actually just very lucky that I did love it and that everything worked out. I'd say it's the end of the journey, because you do have things mapped out for you for so long. So even though, I didn't always know what all the steps were, there were all these steps. And once you know them, it's a long time. It was 5 years of studying, then it was 3 years of articles. And when it ends, I think a lot of CAs feel a bit almost stuck, like they don't know what to do next. I think that's when I did my half Ironman, because it was weird not having the next thing and not having a complete plan. And then also realizing that being a CA isn't actually a job title. It's not like auditing where that's then what you do. A CA is it's a designation. You can do anything. You could be a CA and be doing philanthropy. You could be a CA and be an entrepreneur and just start your own business. So I think it's thinking, what am I actually going to do now? and you almost feel like you're starting again, like you're choosing what to study again, because there's so much you can do and you have to figure out what it is that you want to do. It wasn't really rebuilding, but the thing I probably got the most wrong was, unfortunately, our provisional tax payments last year, where you basically have to pay half your tax halfway through the year, which I still think is quite unfair because they want you to pay it in June. So it's like you have to estimate what you think you're going to earn for the year and then pay your tax over. And if you pay too little, you could get fined, etc. So it's quite stressful. And I luckily did not underpay and get fined, but I did overpay, which is not great to then realize afterwards. But I think what I had to learn through that is that someone else prepared it and I checked it. And I think you do, when you realize something went wrong, it was a difficult thing to realize as a manager that it actually is still your fault. You kind of want to blame the other person and say, I was just checking, I checked it quickly, I didn't notice this mistake. But realizing that as a manager, your team's mistake is your mistake and that you can't actually push it onto someone else or try and shirk yourself from the blame because it's on you as well. So I think that was a tough lesson to learn, but also a good lesson because you realize that everything's solvable. I came out, I admitted to it, I saw how to try and fix it. Still haven't gotten the money back, but we will. And I think it's realizing also that not everything's going to be done perfectly, but if you keep striving towards perfection, it'll get closer and closer to it. So I think this kind of takes me back to that first question about being young, and I think thinking about things a lot more and caring about them a lot more. I think what I try and do as a manager and a leader is I really do care. And I feel like if you care about other people and their careers, you're kind of halfway there already, because a manager who doesn't care at all and just kind of sees managing as a role isn't going to do all that kind of stuff. So I think I really do care. I care that people feel like they are further in their careers. I care if they're bored. I care if they feel like the work isn't stimulating. I also care if they're working way too hard and they're working overtime and things like that. So I think how I try and empower people is just by really caring. And I also try and be very honest. I try and have feedback sessions. If someone tells me that I'm happy about something in their work life, I'll try and change it. And I try and keep that kind of open dialogue about what people like. And also respect them. I think when I ask people to do work, I'll do things like ask them how much work they're doing, what are they currently busy with, can they handle it? And then on top of that, I think the hardest thing I had to learn was to take the time. So if someone comes to you and they've got a problem, it can sometimes be a bit jarring when you're halfway through your work and you're really stressed, and in finance there's a lot of deadlines. But I think I had to learn to stop what I was doing and actually give them my time, no matter how long it took. And instead of just telling them where to find something, taking them through it, opening up my laptop, showing them exactly where to find it in Xero or on our banking app or wherever it is. I think that was one of the biggest things I had to learn, is that as a manager, half your job is also being there for other people. I'm not sure. I think a lot of older generation don't care as much about work-life balance. So maybe realizing that someone is here for 8 hours of the day, 5 days a week, or 9 hours, to be honest, with lunch, and that you have a huge impact on people's lives and their happiness and their mental health. And I think taking that quite seriously, always trying to be kind of a positive experience in other people's lives. Obviously, you can't always as a manager because you also have to do the disciplining and all that kind of stuff. But I think on a day-to-day with your interactions with other people, it's caring that they're actually having a good time and that you're not this negative impact on their life. I think my first ever manager kind of left the biggest mark on me because she was very kind and just very sweet and lovely and helpful. And I think I always saw that as maybe more of a negative attribute in management. I think I was quite shocked with how nice she was. And what it taught me was that you don't have to get good results from people by being mean or not being a nice person. And that if you're a nice manager and people take advantage of it, they were always going to take advantage. Then that shows more about them than it does on you. So I'd rather always try and be nice, and you deal with the consequences later if they take advantage of that. And I think, I'm really glad that I learned that lesson. I was actually thinking about this earlier, and I think my motto and the biggest advice or kind of thing that I realized and mantra that I say to myself is, you don't say no for other people. You must make other people say no to you. So you must never stop yourself from trying to do something. You can't be the person that holds yourself back or is too scared to do something. If you are scared people are going to say no to you, that's fine, but they say no. You don't say no.